There is more to Shedeur Sanders' story than just his well-known last name. Now, it's a story of perseverance, poor decision-making, and a strong desire to change the NFL standards for what a quarterback prospect ought to be. Go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in the true tale and all the messy turns that aren't shown on highlight reels. Additionally, you should certainly subscribe if you plan to stay to watch how this Browns quarterback crisis unfolds. Sanders, who was selected in the 5th round of the NFL draft, is now the league's most talked about rookie quarterback. Every throw he makes and every rep he takes has a heavier charge, not because of scandal or fanfare. Verification. His draft ranking may have decreased because to the Dion factor, a phrase that scouts and front offices murmured. Of course, it's code. Code for self-assurance, charm, swagger, and self-reliance. Code for not engaging in gaming in the proper manner, which frequently simply entails taking orders discreetly and without upsetting the order. Shedeur isn't wired that way though. Shedeur walks with his own light, just like his father, Deion Sanders. That's exactly what makes him dangerous. Not only a defense, but also to the NFL's traditional methods. Many believed Shedeur would pout or fume after the draft, upset by what was obviously a severe undervaluation of his skill set. However, he took the opposite action. He left for work. Videos of Shedeur and intensely concentrated private exercises with top trainers quickly appeared from Miami. He was not on holiday. He wasn't working in the media. He was dissecting tape, honing mechanics, and getting ready for battle. The stress was visible in his eyes. The knowledge that everyone had questioned him and the will to hold them all accountable. And they might pay. Herman Edwards, a former NFL coach who has known Shedeur since he was a young boy, couldn't have been more forceful. This young person will be hired. It's not a superficial recommendation. Every team that passed on Sanders in the first 4 rounds faces a challenge. The Cleveland Browns coaching staff should take note of this. You don't wait if Sanders performs well during preseason and training camp. You don't use hedging. You give him command and center the attack around him. Edwards has much experience assessing quarterback skill. He has witnessed stars emerge from the league and go out of style. He sees more in Sanders than simply mechanics though. It's emotional intelligence, grit, leadership, and intangibles. When you're behind by 6, that's the kind of foundation you want in your huddle. 80 yards remain with 2 minutes remaining. Still, there are voices in the room asking, why rush? After all, the Browns drafted Dillon Gabriel, an intelligent, calm, and efficient passer in his own right. Gabriel is a kind of guy who checks boxes in interviews and on the chalkboard. But where Gabriel may be the steady hand, Shedeur is a game share. The Browns also still had aging veteran Joe Flacco on the roster, a respected name, but clearly in the twilight of his career. The competition in the quarterback room was more about philosophy than talent. Do you value flash in potential or reliability and experience? But the game is changing. In today's NFL, quarterbacks must do more than manage a game. They must own it. They must move the pocket, process lightning-fast offenses, and have the confidence to thread a pass where only a star would dare. Sanders is all that. The Browns would be foolish not to let it flourish. Moreover, Cleveland is ready for a hero. A city with a painful history of quarterback flops. From Tim Couch to Johnny Manziel has been searching for someone to believe in. Sanders is walking into a vacuum of hope. But unlike previous prospects, he's not walking timidly. He's bringing cameras, conviction, and charisma. And the people, they're loving it. Shedeur has already been seen at local schools, charity events, and youth football camps. He's not just talking a big game. He's showing he understands the responsibility of being the face of franchise. His brand isn't distraction. It's a magnet. And in a league where fan engagement is as crucial as talent, that matters. Inside the locker room, Sanders is quickly gaining allies. His dedication in film study has surprised veterans. He's the first in the building, last leave. Offensive linemen say he buys them meals and studies protections with them. Receivers say he stays after practice to throw extra routes. Coaches say he asks questions that rookies don't typically think to ask. Every small thing points to a big conclusion. He wants this more than anyone else. And that's where the revenge narrative deepens. Sanders doesn't just want to be a good rookie. He wants to make a statement to every franchise that passed on him. To every GM who thought he was too flashy. To every talking head who labeled him a brand-first quarterback instead of a football-first competitor. He's playing for the city, the locker room, but most of all, he's playing for himself. To prove the price of doubting Shedeur Sanders is much higher than a fifth-round pick. Training camp will be the crucible. The Browns have made it clear the starting job is up for grabs. It's not a ceremonial gift. It's a war of attrition. Every practice will be a referendum. Every snap in preseason a case for or against the future. But those who watch Sanders closely believe he won't just survive the pressure. He'll thrive in it. He has a chip on his shoulder the size of the stadium. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. Tom Brady had it after being picked 199th. Aaron Rodgers had it after dropping on draft day. Patrick Mahomes had it when teams labeled a gunslinger project. Sanders is walking into the league with that same fire, and he's carrying the torch for every athlete who was told they were too loud, too bold, too much. And if he wins the job, if he steps onto that field week 1 as a starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns and balls out, it will be the start of something seismic. The Browns, for the first time in decades, might not just have a quarterback. They might have a star, a movement, a revolution in cleats. If he fails, he'll own it. That's the thing about Shedeur. He's never made excuses, never blamed coaches, teammates, or situations. He's a reflection of his father's ethos. Confidence without apology, accountability without fear. But don't bet on him failing. Because everything about this moment, the fall in the draft, the workout grind, the community embrace, the fire in his belly points to a player not just motivated by opportunity, but fueled by being overlooked. So as training camp inches closer, and as a buzz around Shedeur Sanders grows louder, NFL teams that passed on him will watch with nervous eyes. Because if he becomes what many already believe he is, they'll be replaying that draft night again and again, asking themselves the same haunting question. How do we miss on him? As the preseason schedule approached, Shedeur Sanders found himself in a position most rookie quarterbacks only dream about but rarely attain. A genuine shot to seize a starting job from day one. This wasn't just about outperforming Dylan Gabriel or winning over a coaching staff still evaluating options. It was about commanding an entire city. The media had begun circling. The cameras followed his every throw. National talk shows debated his readiness, his attitude, his fit in the league. But within the walls of the Browns' practice facility in Berea, the noise faded. Inside it was just football, just reps, just tape. And every day, Shedeur quietly stacked wins. The first major shift came during the team's joint practice with the Detroit Lions. The defense came out aggressive, blitz-heavy, tried to rattle the rookie. Sanders took a couple of early sacks, clearly annoyed. Then came the reset on a 3-yard and 12 play from midfield. He recognized man coverage pre-snap audible to the line and delivered a strike on a deep out to Amari Cooper. First down. The sideline erupted. Coaches exchanged glances. This wasn't a lucky shot. It was recognition, command, and execution. From that moment on, his reps increased. But it wasn't just the throws. It was how Sanders controlled the offense. During a goal line drill, he motioned the tight end across the formation twice to force the defense to declare coverage. He pointed out the Mike linebacker. He shifted protections. Then he changed the play entirely, calling an inside zone that sprung the running back for a walk-in touchdown. The defensive coordinator yelled out in frustration. The offense jogged back to the huddle. No showboating, just business. Players started gravitating toward him, not because he demanded it, but because it felt inevitable. Leadership in the NFL isn't about yelling in huddles or giving raw speeches. It's about trust. Do you know the playbook? Will you get the ball out on time? Do you show up? Do you make your teammates better? By those standards, Sanders wasn't just rising. He was setting the bar in interviews. He downplayed everything. I'm just learning, competing, staying focused. But his actions told a different story. He was watching film with wide receivers after hours. He was texting linemen reminders about blitz pickup adjustments. He was showing up to the facility before the sun came up. There was no sense of entitlement. He knew he had to earn it. Meanwhile, fans in Cleveland were catching on. The moment training camp tickets became available, they sold out in minutes. When Sanders threw a 40-yard touchdown during an open practice, fans roared like it was January football. Kids lined up with homemade QB1 signs and chants of Shedeur. Shedeur filled the air as he walked off the field. This wasn't typical rookie treatment. This was something more. Dillon Gabriel, for all his poise and professionalism, simply couldn't match the energy. Coaches appreciate his consistency, his accuracy in shorty yardage situations. But as practices wore on, it became clear the ceiling with Gabriel was solid. The ceiling with Sanders was franchise-altering. Even Joe Flacco, the veteran presence in room, admitted it to staff behind closed doors. The kids got it. I've seen a lot of guys come through. This one's different. And Flacco wasn't bitter. He started staying after practice to help Sanders dissect coverages, walk through blitz counters, and discuss the mental grind of an NFL season. The mentorship wasn't forced. It was natural. Sanders absorbed everything. Then came the preseason opener. It wasn't supposed to be anything dramatic. Sanders was slotted to play the second half against the Carolina Panthers, mostly facing backups. But something shifted during warm-ups. Head coach Kevin Stefanski approached him near the tunnel. "You're starting the game." No warning, no prep, just a gut decision. Sanders nodded, helmet on, mouthpiece in. "Let's eat." The stadium buzzed as the rookie trotted onto the field with the starters. First play action bootleg. Rolling right. A dart to David Njoku for 11 yards. The drive ended with a touchdown pass to the corner of the end zone, perfectly timed to Cooper, threading between two defenders. Sanders celebrated calmly, tapping his chest once, pointing to the sky. Twitter exploded. Commentators scrambled to adjust their narratives. "Is this the beginning of something special?" one analyst asked live. But the performance wasn't flawless. On the second drive, Sanders threw a pick six. A bad read against cover 2. He returned to the sideline and immediately grabbed a tablet. Reviewing the coverage, no excuses, no soaking. Next drive, 8 plays, 72 yards, and another touchdown. Redemption instantly. After the game, Sanders stood at the podium with composure. "It's just football," he said. "You learn from mistakes, you respond. I'll be better next week." Internally, the coaching staff was already leaning. They'd seen enough. Sanders had the locker room, the talent, and now he had poise under pressure. The next 2 preseason games would serve as confirmation. By the third week, it was official. Shedeur Sanders was QB1. The announcement shocked some. Others called it premature, but in Cleveland, it was a moment of triumph. Fans poured into merchandise stores. Jerseys flew off shelves. Local news ran montages of Sanders' highlight set to inspirational music, the city believed. But now came the real challenge. The regular season opened against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a divisional rival with a top-5 defense. Sanders faced relentless pressure, exotic blitzes, and veteran mind games. He took 4 sacks in the first half, each one harder than the last, but he didn't fold. In the fourth quarter, trailing 17-13, Sanders orchestrated a 12-play 89 yards drive. It ended with a touchdown run, where he dove into the end zone. Ball extended over the pylon. The Browns won. Sanders was named AFC Offensive Rookie of the Week. The revenge arc was no longer a narrative. It was happening by mid-season. Sanders had elevated the Browns to playoff contention. His numbers weren't gaudy number 500-yard games or 6 TD explosions, but he was efficient, composed, and clutch. Most importantly, he brought belief. For a franchise that had cycled through quarterbacks like revolving doors, it finally had a guy worth building around. But what made Sanders different wasn't just the talent. It was a mission. He never forgot the draft slide, the lack of calls, the analysts who said he was more influencer than QB. Every week he played like he was still fighting for a roster spot. Every win was personal. Every doubter fueled his fire. Late in the season, the Browns faced the Kansas City Chiefs in a prime-time showdown. The pre-game media hype was electric. Mahomes versus Sanders. Master versus Protee. The Browns lost narrowly, but Sanders threw for 312 yards and 3 touchdowns, nearly pulling off the upset. Mahomes sought him out after the game. "Keep doing your thing," he said. "You're the real deal." That clip went viral. The locker room gave Sanders a standing ovation. And by the next day, pundits were asking the question no one dared to utter months earlier. Did Cleveland just stumble into a franchise quarterback in the 5th round? The answer, of course, wasn't just yes. It was hell yes. As the season progressed into its back half, the Cleveland Browns found themselves in unfamiliar territory, relevant, dangerous, and galvanized around a quarterback who just months earlier had been ignored, underestimated, and widely dismissed as a project or distraction. But Shedeur Sanders was not a distraction. He was a spark, the one Cleveland had been waiting for. By Week 10, the Browns stood at 7-2. Fans would brace for another rebuilding year. Now bought playoff tickets in advance. Local bars played every Sanders post-game interview on loop. Even ESPN, one skeptical, had shifted tone. The Browns are no longer a joke. One anchor admitted. And Shedeur Sanders is a reason why. It wasn't just numbers, though. They were solid. 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions by mid-season. It was the way Sanders handled the chaos of NFL football. Pressure from blitzes, he slid protection and adjusted his cadence. Broken plays, he extended them with his legs, always looking downfield. Late game drives, that was his home turf. By Week 12, Sanders had led the Browns to 4 fourth-quarter comeback wins. Inside the locker room, players respected him, not for flash, but for how hard he worked. He studied film religiously, logging extra hours with receivers and linemen. He greeted every practice like game day. Defensive players said he never blamed them after a bad series. If the team lost, he took it on the chin. That accountability resonated. In Week 13, Cleveland hosted the Baltimore Ravens. It was a cold, rainy night, and the game had playoff implications. Sanders faced one of the league's best defenses and struggled early. He threw 2 interceptions in the first half, both due to miscommunication. The crowd groaned. For most rookie quarterbacks, that would have been the unraveling moment, but not Shedeur. At halftime, he addressed the offense, not yelling, not panicking, just clarity. "We're fine. They haven't seen our best yet. That second half, that's our half." And he meant it. Sanders came out and torched the Ravens secondary for 3 touchdowns. He kept drives alive with his legs. Converted multiple 3rd and longs and used no huddle like a surgeon. The Browns won 31-27, and Sanders was mobbed by teammates afterward. That night, punters across the league finally dropped a project label. The buzz grew national. Talk shows debated whether Sanders should be Offensive Rookie of the Year. His jersey sold out again. Nike launched a limited edition Sanders signature cleat, but Shedeur kept it quiet. He didn't post much. He rarely responded to praise. Privately, he told his father, "Dion, they doubted me. I'm going to make." The pivotal moment occurred in Week 15, when the Browns defeated the defending Super Bowl champions on the road. The media hyped the game as a lesson for the young quarterback, and no one expected Cleveland to win because they were 10-point underdogs and were missing 2 starting linemen. Shedeur turned it into a statement, throwing for 348 yards and 4 touchdowns, including a 65-yard bomb on the run and a 4th-down goal line bootleg in which he stiff-armed a linebacker before diving in. Coaches praised Sanders as if he was already an elite quarterback, and players teased him about what it was like to ruin Vegas betting lines. That same week, NFL mic'd top footage showed a defensive player asking a mid-aim, "How the hell did you drop to the 5th round?" "Ask them, not me." Sanders simply grinned. A seasoned offensive tackle told reporters the following day, "I've played with a lot of guys. This one is unique. One day, he will win MVP." It wasn't exaggerated. It was starting to happen. Coach Stefanski was confronted with a conundrum when the playoffs were guaranteed. Sanders can continue to play or be rested for the last several weeks. They decided to give him a light rest. Week 17, limited reps. Week 18, a full bench. However, Sanders made news during that last game, even from the sidelines. He helped call plays, remained focused, and wore a headset. Between drives, he and Gabriel huddled and discussed coverages. This wasn't a rookie, the coaches saw. This was a general in the field. Then wild card weekend arrived. The Los Angeles Chargers were hosted by the Browns. Shedeur's first playoff game, prime time, and national attention. He didn't blink. 10 plays, 75 yards, and a flawless back shoulder touchdown to the tight end completed the opening drive. Throughout the night, The stadium erupted. Sanders performed like a magician, reading blitzes, avoiding pressure, and remaining composed even when the Chargers knotted the score late. In response, he gave a surgical 2-minute exercise. 3 throws, 62 yards, field goal to win the game. Reporters question him after the game. "Are you shocked at how quickly you've progressed?" Sanders gave a headshake. "This is what I anticipate. This is what I've worked for. I am aware of who I am." The Browns will play the Chiefs again the following week. This time, a spot to the AFC Championship is at stake. It was a conflict. Sanders versus Mahomes. The second round. All night long, they exchanged touchdowns, but ultimately, the Chiefs' experience won out. The Browns' demise was sealed by a late interception and a missed field goal. They were defeated 38-34. After the last whistle, Sanders sat by himself on the bench. With the helmet off and the eyes forward, there are no tears, just contemplation. One by one, teammates approached. Mahomes did the same. Everyone knew Mahomes was correct when he declared, "You're here to stay. This ain't your last shot." Sanders finished in the top 5 among all quarterbacks, not just rookies, in terms of completion percentage and passer rating at the end of the season. In terms of comebacks in the fourth quarter, he led the league. He had altered Cleveland's culture and was a finalist for Offensive Rookie of the Year. More significantly, he had altered the story. Shedeur Sanders was no longer just a dazzling youngster with no contract or Dion's son. He was a competitor who inspired everyone around him, a leader, a builder, and a legitimate franchise quarterback. And a lead noticed. He started to appear heavily in advertising during the off-season. In schools all around the nation, children wore his jersey. He was mentioned as an example by other young quarterbacks. In private, coaches from other teams questioned Cleveland's rapid construction of such a robust structure. However, the truth was known by the Browns. He wasn't built by them. He developed himself. He gained trust every day, every practice, and every rep by being dependable rather than flashy. He manages huddles. He took responsibility for his errors. He converted skeptics into believers. The revenge tour would continue the next season. That was who he was, not because he needed to show anything. Shedeur Sanders wasn't merely aiming for greatness. He wanted to be indisputable.